Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming this morning early on a Saturday. I just wanted to welcome you all on behalf of the Mariners before we get started. So my name is Mackenzie Mitchell. I oversee our on-base youth baseball and softball activities. And in 2018, we started On Base, and it is an initiative to make baseball and softball more accessible to more young kids across the Pacific Northwest, regardless of the barriers they may face. And we've done a lot of research, and one of the things that we found is that one of the biggest barriers that keeps kids from continuing to play is they've had a negative coaching experience. And I think we can all in this room think about a time that we had a positive coaching experience or maybe a negative coaching experience that changed our playing trajectory. So here at the Mariners, we're really committed to helping coaches like yourselves have access to tools and trainings that help make coaching easier. And we just want to thank all of you for taking time out of your Saturdays and making a commitment to youth baseball and softball in our communities. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark Zender and our guests, Scott Servais, Andy Mintink, and Andy McKay, who's already up here on stage. And thank you. Everyone enjoy.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for everybody for attending. Before these guys get started, I think the number one thing that I would want to just say is that what you're doing is awesome. And I'm sure that most of you honestly did this because you're a parent. And you have a son or daughter or multiple that are playing. So thank you, kind of on behalf of the Mariners and the game of baseball or softball. Like, that's fantastic. I'm just going to pass I'll prompt these guys a little bit. There'll be a lot of time for your questions, so think a little bit as we move forward about what you'd like to know from our guests here. I think that's the best thing we can do is provide that opportunity for you and that access. So I'm going to let them each make some kind of opening statement to you. We'll start with Angie. I don't think I really need to do a whole lot as far as introductions here. I think you know who Angie is, but she has a wealth of information. She played college softball at the University of Washington. She played professional baseball for the Colorado Silver Bullets. She's obviously on television locally here with Root Sports, and she's a baseball mom. And I think that's probably the most important thing she can share is things about that. So I'll let Angie make her opening statement.
Yeah, that's good. I don't think I have to say anything more. I'm not any more interesting than that right there. Yes, I covered the Mariners on Root Sports. I played softball growing up. I went to the University of Washington to start their softball program. And I wish there were more opportunities for young girls to play baseball. But also softball has been pretty good to me, so I can't just say too many bad things about it. After University of Washington, as Mark alluded to, I went on and played baseball for a couple of years for the Colorado Silver Bullets. I was actually an alternate at the time for the Olympic team. But if I signed a pro contract, then I couldn't play for the Olympic team anymore because I'd be a professional. But I was like, I never dreamed of being a softball player in the Olympics. I always dreamed of being a pro baseball player. So I'm going to go do this. And I got the opportunity to play in some amazing ballparks. Shea here at the Kingdom, Metrodome. I'm going to call them all their old names. Jacobs Field, Coors Field. So a lot of really cool experiences for me playing the sport of baseball. And now I have two boys, 12 and 14, and they play baseball, they play basketball, they play soccer, and the 14-year-old loves baseball, loves it. The 12-year-old doesn't realize that baseball is going to be his best sport, but we just continue to gently provide opportunities in baseball until he catches on. So, that's all I got.
First, let me start. Really excited to be here. Of all the events, this is a crazy week for me. I'm doing all the radio appearances and TV stuff. This is the one I really enjoy. You guys deal with the same problems I deal with. So think about some questions that you want to throw at us later on as we go along. But obviously get an opportunity. This is coming up on my 5th year with the Mariners. Love the organization. I love the direction that we're headed, and I'm sure we can talk about that later. But the focus today for me is maybe an opportunity to answer some of your questions and give back. Just like you guys, I started out I shared this story over at the Mercer Island Boys Club. I started out coaching when I was like a sophomore in high school, coaching my younger brother's teams, baseball and basketball and things like that. The things you pick up along the way to even help me today, has been huge. So again, look forward to your questions. Throw anything you want out there. I've seen a lot. I've dealt with things. I don't deal with parents anymore in my job, which is great. But hopefully I did at one point when I was coaching my son's teams and helping out there. So again, throw the questions out. Glad to help and look forward to our conversation today.
My name's Andy McKay. I'm the Director of Player Development here. This is beginning of my 5th year. I came in with Scott and Jerry. And again, this is a highlight for me. I have coached every level of the game. I've coached Little League. I've coached junior college. I've coached I've coached four-year schools. I've coached every level of professional baseball. And we really are all talking about the same things. The issues are the issues at whatever level you're coaching at. And good coaching is good coaching. A good Little League coach is a good coach. You're not a Little League coach. You're a good coach. And again, I just commend everybody for being here. Scott and I, we've sat in those seats earlier this offseason. We go to clinics. Our coaches go out and do these types of things. I went to Chicago to a hitting conference with our hitting group earlier in the fall. Scott and I went to Texas and sat out in the seats to listen to people present. And the idea of continuing education is so important. And so I commend you for being here, and hopefully we can give you something to take back to your teams that can be a benefit to you.
Okay, so the first, I'll be giving 2 or 3 prompts here and then turn it over to you guys. So the first prompt, and you guys can talk, whoever wants to here, and as much as you want, talk about, and this is a big thing to me, is the love of the game. How did you get it? And what maybe advice do you have to these coaches about instilling that love of the game with their players?
Yeah, I think it's something that, we all have things that we gravitate towards, whether it's sports or different hobbies we have, whatnot. For me, it was sports early on. Loved the competition of the game, and not so much just, competing against the other team, but how good can I be? As a player and then as a coach, to hit on what Andy talked about, continuing to grow. But, love of the game really got instilled for me. I grew up in a really small town in Wisconsin. There wasn't a whole lot to do. Literally, just 550 people in the town I grew up in, and lived there till I was 18 years old and went off to college. So it was sports, and particularly baseball in the summertime. Our season's not that long in Wisconsin. You guys know that a little bit here. But growing up, developing relationships with teammates, friends, and it really became a community-based thing. Like that's what everybody did. All the time. And so my love of the game grew there. And then as I started to mature, get a little bit better, get more exposure, and you start to realize, hey, I can play with anybody in the state. And all of a sudden, I can play with anybody in the country. And then I played in the Olympics. I can play with anybody in the world. Okay? And then being on the biggest stage at the big league level, there's nothing more gratifying than being able to compete and know you belong and can make a difference. And be a big part of a team. So it's ongoing. Still, the love of the game is as strong as it's ever been as we face the challenges here in getting the Mariners into the playoffs. So it is ongoing. It's never ending. But really, the competition of it all is what really drives me.
I'm going to go just like in a little bit of a different direction in that just remember, I was talking about my love of the game, but everybody is on also a different timetable. Like every single story at the major league level, you have guys that, ate, slept, everything baseball, and then you have other ones that played several different sports. So everybody sort of has a different timeline. Every kid is different. I played a whole bunch of different sports, volleyball, tennis, football, and softball in high school, and after my freshman year, I made varsity my freshman year, and so they were like, oh, you have to go play on this travel team, the Southern California Shilohs, like they're the best, and you have to go play for them. I played for them for like 2 months, and they were like screaming at me and yelling at me, and they were so mean. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not fun. I do not like this. And so my mom's like, she had the sense to say, then why are we doing this if it's supposed to be fun? So I didn't play. I literally just played high school softball for the rest of the time and didn't play on my first travel team and after my freshman year in college. Now, mind you, things have changed a little bit, but the way I got my scholarship was the college coaches came to look at the catcher on my team and the pitcher on the other team, and I was the one that walked away with the scholarship. So I just feel like, and then when I got to college, it was like, even through high school, like I was chomping at the bit for the sport. Like I loved it so much because I hadn't been grinding out 65 games all summer and everything else, like all these other kids starting at 12 or even earlier than that. So for me, it was just like I couldn't get enough of the sport. You couldn't drag me off the field. And that sort of ascension just carried through high school and then into college. So I was just going to say, everybody's on their own timetable when it comes to that.
I think when you kind of look at what you're doing with your jobs in terms of coaching youth sports, I think we have to remember that youth sports weren't created to create pipelines to the big leagues. That's not why they're there. And when I look back at it now, I understand, go back to the question of why I fell in love with the game, was it gave me an identity, okay, but it also fueled everything that happened in my life because I learned it through Little League, and whether it was learning how to compute a batting average or an ERA or a winning percentage, okay, I realized I can actually kind of do some math here. But every person, every kid craves to be part of something bigger than themselves. Okay? And it's the relationships, it's being on a team. And all the things that youth sports are created to do, teach kids how to compete, teach kids how to work hard and see the results of it, teach kids how to work together, teach kids how to get over themselves for something common, teach kids how to take instructions. Okay? All of those things, I now understand where it came from. It started in Little League for me. And so the love of the game really did come out of just the relationships of being with kids, trying to do the same things, being with really well-intentioned coaches who cared about me and trying to give me an opportunity. And I probably didn't sense it at the time, but now I can look back and I can see how all of that was created back then, really.
Very good. So the next prompt that I have, the last prompt that I have is, and Andy mentioned it briefly in his opening statement, is this concept of getting better as a coach and this idea of continual improvement. So maybe speak to that either as a coach or in working with kids, just that idea of just getting better day to day.
Sure. Really important concept. And, in my position, in Scott's position, where we definitely spend more time coaching coaches than we do coaching players. And we talk about it all the time in player development of, in the off season, we send our kids home with development programs. Okay? What is the coaching equivalent of an off season weight training program? What is the coaching equivalent, okay, of working on your swing? Okay? And there are so many, the information now, when we started coaching, the information wasn't so readily available. It was hard. When you knew there was a good coach in the area, you had to go watch the coach to try to learn something. Now it's all sitting there on your phone, and it's everywhere. And so the idea of being an intentional learner, okay, of understanding that there's always a better way to do what you're doing. In everything you do, there's a better way to do it. Everything that we're doing, there's a better way to do it. We haven't discovered it yet, but we will. And we're not going to wait for it to fall in our lap by accident. That we'll be out searching for it. We'll be out probing for it. We'll remain curious, looking for it. The internet's a wonderful thing. Okay? Coaching clinics like this are a wonderful thing. Every Mariners staff member this off-season went to clinics just like this, okay, to learn from everybody. And when I say learn from everybody, you don't have to learn from somebody above you. There are wonderful high school coaches that I have learned from. Okay? I actually told a story 2 days ago of a local coach in Sacramento in high school that I took something from that we've already implemented into player development. Okay? It doesn't have to be your sport. And I can tell you right now, I've learned way more from football coaches than I've learned from baseball coaches. So just being curious. And what it really drives is the more you learn, it reminds you of how much you don't know. Okay? It keeps you humble. It gives you a much wider perspective to look at things from. So I think it's really important. I think it's part of your job.
Andy hit on it, kind of your mindset and being open to different ideas and different things. It's something that we talked about visiting down in Texas. We went to Texas Baseball Ranch. Andy and I did. I'd never been down there, one of the innovators in you know, teaching pitching and pitching mechanics and how to go about it. Certainly you've seen a number of players that have gone through the program and stuff, but getting the opportunity to go down there, spend a couple days and learn. You know, a week and a half ago, Andy talked about, you know, you learn from different sports. I spent a day with the Miami Heat. I went down to visit a few of our players in South Florida to see how they were doing, but had a chance. I wanted to walk into their building, talk to their coaches, and get a feel for their culture and their environment around that team. I spend a lot of time with the people down the street here at the Seahawks. I think they do it the right way. They do it a little bit differently, but you can take bits and pieces from everything. But having that mindset, and I think Andy hit on a great point too, is, you know, I sit here as the major league manager. I learn from everybody. You learn from minor league coaches, young coaches, college coaches. You know, you take different ideas and pick and choose, and I don't have a problem with stealing anything from anybody. I think you pick here, you pick there, and all of a sudden now that becomes your program. You put your spin on it. Somebody said stealing signs over there.
There's always that guy.
There's that guy, yes, yes. I knew that would come up. It comes up everywhere this time. But no, it is important to have that mindset and continue to grow with it because the players appreciate it. And at the end of the day, I've often said you can't fool the players. The players know. And at a time when I was coming along in the game, it was, and many of you maybe, well, if the coach said it, you just did it. It doesn't work that way so much anymore. You have to have a reason why and be able to explain the why. Because that's how young players are wired today. At my level, at your level, you can't get put off because a 12-year-old says, why should I do that? You better have a good answer for them. I tell my players, if our coaches can't give you a good answer, don't do it. At the end of the day, it's your career. You know, so it really helps our coaches think about what we're going to ask of our guys and going forward and trying to get them to buy in and trust us in what we're doing. So there's a lot that goes into it. I love it because it is a challenge every day. How much better can we get to get our message across to our players and break down the walls and gain their trust. So, Ange?
I would echo, and echo. My favorite saying in regards to coaching is the best coaches are the best thieves. Is, you know, steal from everybody else's best ideas and then make it yours and make it work for what you're doing. You're stealing it for football, but you're going to, you know, apply it to baseball. The one thing I always like try to remind coaches, because I have to remind myself this with my kids, and I've coached my kids in Little League and then also on a travel team. But remember when you're dealing with these young kids that a lot of times I think we remember the athlete we were when we ended our career at 16, at 17, at 18, at 22 or 27 or whatever it was whenever your career ended, not necessarily when we began our careers. And sometimes you got to remember what it was like to be 9. And sometimes, you know, all they want to do is, you know, get major league gum and, you know, what is that stuff called? The big league chew, thank you. Big league chew and have fun with their buddies, you know what I'm saying? And all you should do as a coach when they're at that age is just keep getting them to love the game, because the longer they love the game, the longer they will play the game, and they have a better chance of getting better at the game.
Go ahead. Yeah, please do.
Shocking. I want to talk more. And I want to talk about learning, and Scott and I talking about a similar thing. Most of our learning isn't about throwing curveballs and mechanics of swings. And when we talk about learning, it's things like messaging, communicating, leading, organizing, motivating. Okay? And it's like 90% soft skills and maybe 10%, hey, here's a different grip on a curveball, maybe to think about. And I think the same should apply to you as well. Because as I learned at a clinic this off season, thinking about the kids that we're coaching, okay, and how they consume information. Okay? If it doesn't fit in a tweet, okay, can you get your message into a tweetable text? Okay? I think it's a great challenge. I mean, learning how to simplify is everything. Can you take your 2 pages and turn it into 1 page? Can the 1 page become a 3x5 card without losing the substance? Those are the types of things that we're trying to get better at more so than the X's and O's and when to bunt.
That's great stuff. What this, to me, and I'm a high school teacher, to me, we're in the people business. And I think that's an important point. And when we talk about these things that I prompted these guys, and you're hearing it with all their answers, and you are now in the people business. You may be a bean counter day to day, but when you became a Little League coach, you went into the people business. And there's a real art to it. It's a real art to it. Okay, so we got a lot of time for your questions. Okay, I can ask questions of these guys if you can't fill the time, but I'm assuming you're going to be able to fill the time. So Mackenzie's going to grab this microphone. Where'd you go? There she is. Put her on the run here. Okay.
Anyone?
And I'm going to just come over here.
Thank you. So good morning. My name is Rob. I am a new coach for West Seattle Little League. After 2 years of helping on the sidelines for my daughter's T-ball team, I'm honored by the opportunity to help her along in her baseball journey and sports journey as well. So I guess my question would be around effort. How do you coach and encourage effort? So from my perspective, the result doesn't matter. Well, it certainly matters less at this stage. But I don't care as much about the result. I care about giving 100% max effort every time. So how do you coach that? How do you inspire that among your players? And what sort of advice or thoughts would you have for us around effort?
I think I've made the comment at my level. I shouldn't have to coach effort, okay? But, okay, where you're at is so important, and I spent a number of years coaching my son, helping out there, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. At those ages, going hard, getting on players, being negative over the top doesn't work, in my opinion. Calling the bad or the poor effort, calling that person out. What I really focused on was praising the good effort. Kids want to get a pat on the back. They want to be accepted. They want the coach to like them. They do. So anytime a young player gave the effort that I was looking for, I made sure to point that out, bring it out. And I say all that, it's actually the same thing I do right now. Crazy as it sounds, they still need the pat on the back. Okay, and we may call up in a base running situation. We have a daily meeting in the big leagues. We'll go over that night's starting pitcher on the other team, and it does create an opportunity to get our team together in a room. We have the ability to show video on a big board, and I will often call up good plays that happened the night before. Okay, just that whether it's an effort play, we ran the bases the right way, we got lined up in a cutoff and relay the right way. So accentuating the positive. Now, there are times we have to have a one-on-one about the effort level after we've tried the other way, but try to stay positive as best you can. That'd be my advice.
Yeah, I think I would add that, believe it or not, like playing hard is a skill. Okay, and it takes reps. It takes coaching. And one of the things that I've absolutely used this with our coaches with the Mariners, if you coach every kid like they're your kid, and let me explain what I mean here, that when your kid, meaning your son or daughter, has a deficiency, you don't give up on them, all right? And they let you down in many different ways because they're learning and they're growing. And the patience that you have with your own child really should be the patience you're trying to get to with everybody else's kids too. And when your own kid does something that you're not really happy with, you certainly coach them, you talk to them about it, but you're very patient and you're very persistent. And people who tend to coach were people who generally played hard. And so there's always kind of that gap there. And I've learned over time just to be a lot more patient with it. And like Scott said, the key is that you just praise the positive and try to minimize the negative things.
I would try as much as you possibly can to within those practices and your practice plans to make games within a game. I always say with like T-ball, you're trying to get them to learn how to like run through first base. will stand 5 feet behind first base and everybody has to come give you a high five, to get them to sprint all the way through the base versus a T-ball they want to stop right on first base. Yeah, exactly. Hop on first base, those kinds of things. So make fun games, either relay races or things like that where they're, throwing to one person, the next person, and then, okay, who gets it all the way back, when you're trying to teach them a drill like kind of catch, turn, and throw. But I would just try to make a lot of little games within the game, and then all of a sudden practice is over and they don't even realize it. We have a hot water tap on the side of our house, and every single year before whatever team my kids are on, we have a 50-foot water slide, and we go over like how to slide, figure 4 sliding, hands up, don't drag them, and then we literally have, even if it's April and it's freezing, we have a hot water tap and we have a 50-foot water slide to teach them how to slide. They love sliding, because they learn how to do it the right way. Game within the game.
Appreciate the time today. I'm coaching in Kirkland National Little League. I'm curious, how do you balance knowing when to approach a player directly about something that you see that they need to work on in their game versus knowing when to kind of let them go at their own pace and let them figure it out on their own?
Good question. You don't want to be overbearing. Every time a kid or a player does something wrong, you're down his throat. You have to allow room for growth. There will be some mistakes. Errors are going to happen. Strikeouts are going to happen. Those things are going to happen. The physical mistakes. The mental mistakes, we try to address them immediately and make sure we're very clear in your messaging. Don't think he got it or she got the message. That's probably the one thing I've learned over time. Dealing with professional players, don't assume anything. It's kind of my theme this spring training with our team because we are so young. And I would say the same thing with you. You're coaching 11, 12, whatever age level you're at, is don't assume anything. But on the mental mistakes, there's a reminder. You want to stay consistent with your messaging, but try to be very direct. And don't assume that they got the message. Like, what were you thinking? What was your thought process? Get them to talk. Oftentimes, they'll figure out the answer themselves going that way. That'd be my piece of advice.
That's a great question. Most coaches, and certainly myself, when you start coaching, you're very rigid, and you have like your playbook. We're always going to do it this way. And the more you coach, the wider your boundaries get, because you understand there is just no formula for doing this. Like we said, we're in the people business. And so you can have the same situation going on with 2 different players and handle it completely different. Where player X, I'm going to be on him, and I'm going to give him immediate feedback every single time. Because for whatever reason, that's what you feel is going to help. And the other player, you're going to give them more room to let them learn on their own and figure things out through the course of the season. There is no right or wrong answer other than what works. And what works, there's generally not a blueprint for it. Okay? The one thing, again, to follow what Scott said, the messaging is really critical. So it's okay to tell a player, I'm going to give you some room to fail. I may not coach you immediately, this is why, but I'll always be there, and it might be 2 days later or 3 days later, but this is why I'm doing it, because I think you have the ability to learn these things on your own, and we do know the best lessons are self-learned. The things that people can figure out on their own tend to stick a lot more than things that they learn from being instructed by somebody else.
My husband runs the coaching minor at Seattle Pacific University, and it's so much of a thing where he's a big Wooden fan, but public praise, private criticism. So, but again, I completely agree. It depends on the kid. Some kids, you could get my 14-year-old's face and spit on him and yell at him and scream, and he's like, okay, cool. And you say one thing to my 12-year-old, and he like crumples. They're just completely different athletes in the way they take criticism. The one thing I would add is like the sandwich technique, a little bit of bread, some nice, a little bit of meat in the middle, more bread, something nice at the end. So something nice, little criticism, something nice. And the point of me bringing up my husband is like when I say something to my kids and I just say it, they will say, really need to work on your sandwich technique, Mom. You know, I'm like, it's from their dad, that I'm not giving them enough bread. I'm giving them a little too much meat. So anyway.
A great example is too, and just things that we've been talking about this week in the media with, you know, we have two of the top prospects in baseball with Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez. And you coach them completely differently. They're very good friends. They've been on the same team. And the way you address both of them is very different because they're different people. They have different drives. They have different motives. And they're both really, really good people who are really good players. And again, the more you coach, the more you begin to understand that it's not really about what you want to do. It's about what's going to work for the player. So that's a great question and one that we're always trying to get better at.
Anyone on this side of the room?
Hi guys, my name is Griffin. I'm a first-year coach with Baymajon in Little League. You were mentioning how you coach each player differently. Does that come? What I'm trying to say is, does that fall into the same thing with skill level? So I've noticed as a 10-year umpire from multiple levels from Little League up through college that some coaches seem to coach or pay more attention to the players that need more development over, let's say, for example, a player that has the skill level or the veteran level of, let's say, Kyle Seager, who's been playing for multiple years. Do you go and coach each player the same in terms of the entire team, so that even the veteran players need the same amount of coaching, or do you let them kind of deal with their own and let them play their way compared to a player that needs a little bit more help?
I think that's a challenge. It really is. The different experience levels and certainly different skill levels, but it has to be individualized for me. I am going to deal with Kyle Seager differently than I'm going to deal with Shed Long. Okay, and what we talk about and how we talk about it, understanding that Kyle's got a ton more experience. You're dealing with different skill levels within a youth team. I think you don't want to leave anybody behind, right? So, you want your 12th, 13th player on your team to have as good as experience as the top 2 or 3 players on your team, but it's challenging. How do I get that kid in the game? How do I get his skill level up? And I think trying to find ways to build confidence in young players is huge. Okay, so you may not have to build the confidence of your top 2 or 3 players on your team. They kind of got it. They're going to be okay. But trying to build confidence in player number 12, 11, 10 on your squad, takes a little bit more work on the coach's end. How do I put that kid in a position where he can succeed? Because at the end of the day, your teams are only as good as your weakest link, so to speak. How do I bring that guy up? Same thing that we deal with at the major league level. How do I get those guys, the younger players, how do I get them to contribute? And a lot of it is really tied to what's going on between their ears and the confidence level there. So create, workouts, specific skill things for them that they can achieve, see some growth, the confidence builds. It may help a little bit there. Andy's probably more of an expert on this one than me with what you're talking about.
I don't know about that, but it is. These questions are great, and again, it goes back to our earlier point of we're all dealing with the same things. And we had a leadership summit right in this very room, right here, with about 50 of our minor league players and staff members, and one of our players said, "I'm going to be on that wall." This wall behind, and I'm looking at Junior, and I'm looking at Edgar and Ichi and Mike Cameron, who's actually on our staff now. And I said, that's great. And I said, do you want me to coach you to that standard? And he said, what do you mean? I said, you're talking about Hall of Fame players. And he goes, yeah, coach me like you would a Hall of Famer. And I said, okay, so you're nowhere close to being on that wall. And he kind of looked at me, and I said, well, that's what you want. I'm telling you, you're nowhere close to being a player that's on that wall. Now, if he'd said, I just want to play a day in the major leagues, it's a very different thing. And you have to understand that with your kids, that they have different goals. And that's okay, And you can't control what their goals are. You can't make them love something or want something. Okay? So if you have a player who wants to be a major league player, and he really, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you have a player who just wants to have fun and be part of the team, that's great too. And you have to mold your coaching. When we have over 200 players in our system, we have 200 different development plans. And if you have 12 or 13 kids, you need to look at it like there's 12 or 13 different projects. And they all have individual needs, and you're going to have to address them fairly differently. So.
Yeah, I think it is a challenge whether it's coaching or even teaching. You see that often where the kids that are the hardest ones end up taking up so much of your time rather than the ones that don't need a lot of help or are good students. And so you really kind of have to balance that, though, because you don't want to have 80% of your time dealing with the kid that is your weakest link. Do you know what I'm saying? And then, forgetting about all the other kids that, deserve your attention and development as well. So that really is, that's a difficult thing to sort of weigh. And again, it happens, for those of you who might be teachers in the room, it happens all the time in the classroom as well. I think that, I told this story last year, I had this one kid on the team, it was just the squirrel. I mean, just couldn't get this kid to pay attention to do anything. I made him the catcher. And literally, I think the first pitch, hit him in the chest. And he was like, oh my gosh, I got to pay attention. And so it's I put him in a role that he couldn't screw around because every ball was coming to him. So he had to actually pay attention, and that was good for him. It was a good role for him, even though he wasn't the most talented catcher. But it engaged him, and it kept him occupied, so I didn't have to keep dealing with the squirrel. So
yeah, we have one over here.
Hi, my name's David. I'm with the North Central Little League, so I'll be coaching 9, 10, 11. If you guys were going to be and we're kind of at the beginning of our season, team formation. If you guys were going to be managing a team of 9, 10, and 11-year-olds, one of you guys mentioned about kids want to be part of something bigger. So if you were the manager and you wanted to kind of, you're at the formation stages, how would you go about setting your team identity for the year for 9, 10, and 11-year-olds?
Really good question. I think when you're first starting out your practice, there are certain things that are important to you as a coach, and you want your team to play a certain way. If you just stand up or write it down, or it's what you talk about, here's what we're going to do, this is what we're going to be about. It might work. My guess is it probably doesn't. What I think that might be suggested, ask them. What's important to them? Who are their favorite players? Who are their favorite teams? And then draw from that experience. You like Kyle Seager. Why do you like Kyle Seager? You can lead that discussion to get the point you want. And that might be the one thing you want to stress in your identity. And now it's not your idea, it's Kyle's idea, the young guy on your team, and now you put that together. So they came up. You know where you wanted to get to, but you let them be part of the process. Just a suggestion I'd throw out there.
Again, same thing that we're all dealing with, and building off of Scott's answer, it's not just the player, it's the parents, okay? And I think if you're coaching, you have to put some type of dinner event together to get everybody in the room together as you begin your season. Because Scott says he doesn't deal with parents. We deal with professional parents. They're called agents, okay? And I learned this from Tom Izzo at Michigan State, the basketball coach, in recruiting, and he said, you're not really recruiting the kid. You have to find out who you're actually recruiting. Are you recruiting the dad? Are you recruiting the mom? Are you recruiting the AAU coach? And you have to understand who you're recruiting and recruit them, and it's rarely the actual player. Okay? So you have to get all the stakeholders together, usually the parents, okay? And understand that the car ride home is probably going to impact them more than what you just did at practice, okay? And so if we can get everybody together, and again, most of us really do want the same things, but give them a chance to talk, give them a chance to create it. And going back to the question, what would I do? I would get it on paper. And I would have some type of identity statement. This is who we are. We created this together. Everybody had input. And it becomes a little bit of an unofficial contract, but it's also giving you a reference point to go back to. Okay? And sometimes, you know what, it just might not be a good fit. You know, I'm looking to have my group have as much fun as they can and to learn about things that they can apply in the classroom and to sign up and play Little League again next year. That's what I want to do. You want to play, you know, 28 different travel tournaments, maybe you need to be on a different team. Okay, or vice versa. There's again, just getting it out there, getting it on paper, and letting all the people involved have a little bit of say in it, I think will go a long way for you.
I am enraged by the dad that like stands outside the cage and is like, get your back elbow up. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't need to get his back elbow up. You know, catch like this, do this, you know, your front foot, you're bailing. I'm like, oh my gosh, where were you for the last 6 weeks? Do you know what I'm saying? The time is not now, you know, when your kid is trying to hit in a live at bat for you to step in and be a coach. Your job was to like take him out and hit off the tee with him, you know, 6 weeks ago. It's not now. So my thing, I would, exactly what they were talking about, get the input of the parents and everybody, but there should be some like, hey, listen, and it's hard for me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like no coaching from the stands, like figure out what it is, because that can make a really like nasty culture. And one thing I would make sure I have on there somewhere is do not coach someone else's kid. And you guys are giggle, and I mean, it's really bad. You know, I see it in basketball. Pass the ball. I'm like, you shut the hell up. Like, he's open. He should shoot it. We're out here to score. Like, if your kid's open, I'm going to tell him to shoot it. But like, I mean, don't like be really careful about coaching other kids. You know, the dad that hasn't clearly worked with his kid, played catch with his kid. And I'm sorry, I'm picking on the dad. Because I'm sure the moms are all doing it. But
moms get on the refs.
Yeah, the moms. But that's what I'm saying. You really do. And we say this to our kids as well. It's like, if you ever in basketball do this to the ref, I will rip you out of that gym. These guys don't make any money. Just he called a foul. There's nothing you can. He's not going to uncall the foul. So like your stupid face. Pointless, okay? Same thing. He called you, strike 3, you're out. You know what I'm saying? Like the face, stop it. And I think there's like, it really is important, you know, for you guys as coaches to create that kind of culture with the kids. And they should have, you know what I mean, way more respect for the umpire. They're not making a great living. They are not rolling in the dough. So, you know, try to figure out what that culture looks like for your team. Decide it, but those are some of the things I would say will stop a lot of problems down the road.
We have one up here in the front.
Hi guys, Jody Bossert, Mill Creek Little League. They say baseball is 90% mental and 10% physical. So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are with the mental game becoming so much more important nowadays. You know, we get a valuable 2 hours to work with these kids. How much of that time should we be spending, you know, in the dugout or wherever with our team talking about self-talk, visualization, things like that? And how much time should we just be out there focusing on developing these kids in their basic, you know, skills?
Sure. It's real. And when you say it's 90, I mean, we have these arguments all the time. And the more you do it, the number just keeps creeping. It's 100%. It's all mental. Because everything starts here, okay? But I would, and now I'm going to kind of contradict it, at that age, you know, and even at any age, psychology can't overcome physics. Okay? They have to have an understanding of how to throw the baseball. Okay? It doesn't matter how good their self-talk is if they don't know how to do it. So they have to have that foundational level to support everything. But again, you have your 2 hours, and one of the things that we try to do is not have like mental training. We're just trying to be embedded into everything that you do, okay? And so when you're working with the hitter, you know, the first question is always like, what are you thinking right now? What are you trying to do? What is your goal? What is your intent of this swing, okay? And in terms of self-talk, you know, that's something we all need help on. We've all talked poorly to ourselves at times. And so I think it's perfectly fair game. Goal setting, I think, is great. It's a very simple thing and showing them how to use it off the field. Okay, the simplest thing. I don't know if you guys remember. There's a major league player, former major league player named Nick Johnson, who's from Sacramento, and had come from a baseball family. Larry Boa was his uncle, and his garage is still to this day is covered with this butcher paper of him charting all of his practice work and logging it in. And it's pretty mind-boggling. Just simple things like that I would consider to be mental training, okay? But I would not go real deep. I would not be having them read books at that age. They have to have that fundamental foundation underneath them before those things can really begin to happen. And even in our situation, you know, Scott spends a whole lot more time talking about mental type things than we do in rookie ball. In rookie ball, you're learning how to throw a curveball. In the big leagues, they have curveballs. Okay? So it is a sliding scale at whatever group you're in. The younger you are, the more physical, the more fundamental it has to be. And as you grow, it just becomes more mental.
Yeah, I think Andy hit the nail on the head with young players. I will share a story about a player you all know. Is Daniel Vogelbach had a great half season for us last year. Everybody was on the Vogie train. I was right there with you. Love his personality. He's got energy. He loves baseball. You know, and he was tearing it up in the first half of the season last year and went to the All-Star game. When he came back from the All-Star game, he started to struggle. Okay, and you could see what was happening is that he was going in a spiral. He was digging a hole himself because of the negative self-talk he had going. I got to kill that pitch. I'm better than that. This guy stinks. I stink. You know, the whole thing. And I sat down and talked with him after this went on for about 2-3 weeks. I saw where it was going because I've been there. I've done it to myself and tried to explain to him, hey, you've got to let this go. You know, you've got to turn it around, and it starts, you know, with your thoughts and how you think when you step into the box. He couldn't stop it. I just spent a day with him about a week and a half ago down in Fort Myers and went to lunch and just checking in on him. How's it going? He's going to go work out. And he says, Skip, you know, remember when you talked to me last year? I get it. He said, I did it to myself. I said, yes, you did. You know, so again, here's a guy that's 27 years old. He's played a lot of baseball. You know, it's still a challenge to stay positive because when you start going down that negative hole, it's tough to get out. But to Andy's point, at the level you guys are dealing with, you've got to have the skill set. I deal with this all the time. It's really the biggest part of my job, is trying to be able to connect with guys, earn their trust, and then be able to have the tough conversations with them. And a lot of it is around where they're at psychologically and knowing that they can go out and compete. It'll probably be my biggest challenge this year with our young group, to stay consistent and get those guys to try to play on an even keel, because it is a challenge.
One thing I was going to, one mental thing I think you could add, and I completely agree with them. There's not a whole lot that you can add into the mental game at this age, but one thing that I think is really important, and it's really simple and stupid, but it's a big thing at this age. The idea or the concept of yes, 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 yes versus yes, 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 no, because a lot of times at the Little League level, they sit there and it's ambivalence. Is this a good pitch? Is this a good pitch? Oh, yes, it is. Now I'm going to swing. Too late. They have to instill in the mindset at this very young age that every single pitch is a strike until you shut it down. So it's that concept of yes, 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 yes versus yes, 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 no, it's not a good pitch. Because the whole concept of maybe I'm going to hit this, now when I realize it is a good pitch, it's too late. So that's one thing I think that they can. And then I learned this from Scott years ago, and I implemented it. And this is, again, not really sort of mental, but it is. Bear with me. I love the fact that he doesn't talk to his team after the game. And he realized in his career, and he told this story, and I was like, it's brilliant. He realized that after the game, and he's like, you know, we didn't do this, and we didn't do that, and we didn't do this. That was for him. And I should have let you tell this story. You know, but it was for him, it wasn't really productive. I would say, and it's one of those things, say some good things about what your team did well after a game and then move on. Because you saying everything they did wrong, that's really on you. Stick that in your head and work on it the next time that they're ready to hear that message, because they're not ready to hear it after a game. So whatever you did wrong, put that in your practice plan the next time. Shut your mouth, say something nice, and give them their snacks. So I would go ahead.
Yeah, I had a high school coach, and I love him dearly. And he's still alive, he's an older gentleman. But after every high school game I ever played, we sat in the dugout for an hour. For an hour. And he was a great baseball guy, and I love him. But my senior year, I said, if I ever coach a team, we will never do this. And you'll often see it. I started coaching my son, and every team after the game, they get all their stuff, they get out of the dugout, they get on the left field line, and the coach starts talking. And what does he do? He's telling them what they need to do better. He may be throwing some positive stuff at them. But at the end of the day, the only person that's getting anything out of that is the coach. The players ain't listening. You know, how do I get out of here? When are we going to eat? Can I go to McDonald's? You know, whatever it is, that's
cupcakes right there.
Yeah, so you know, I will say at the level I'm at now, I may have 1-2 meetings a year after a game, and sometimes you need to wake up the troops a little bit. But at the youth level, really never seen much benefit in it. You know, as far as playing with the mental and where their psyche's at.
Okay, we'll take one more question back here.
Hi, my name is Rod. I've managed in North Central Little League for 19 years. I'm currently back as a coaching with my grandson. I've also done a lot of basketball over the past 30 years. And I'd like you to address this issue because this came up just recently. Speaking to yourself and other coaches, how do you balance playing the game the right way, player development, and versus winning?
Yeah, it's a great question for me right now. I'll be honest. We're the direction that we've gone, and we're going with the Mariners. At the major league level, we are judged on wins and losses, right? You know, so you have to keep things in perspective. I think this year, dealing with my team, is we have to have bigger picture in mind. Where are we trying to get to? What's the ultimate goal with individual players? You know, we need to get them to gain experience. I think, you know, when to push on we have to win this game, it typically doesn't work out well. I don't care what level you're at. And even in my experience, when we've had teams here in recent years that we were pushing for try to get over the hump into the playoffs, and when I would go into games thinking, okay, this is crucial, we got to win this third game of the series, otherwise we lose a couple games in standings, that's on me. I have to step back and say, no, let's coach a good effort, let's make sure everybody's in the right spot, let's give our team the best chance to win with the decisions we're making, because you cannot control, you know, the outcome on that. You can really only control your response to different things that come up throughout the course of the game. And Andy, and he'll go deeper into this, but we spent a lot of time talking about that and how important that is. There's so many events that happen throughout the course of the game. Bad call, player makes an error, player on the other team makes an unbelievable play that you can't believe he made. I mean, there's all those things, those events that happen, okay? And then there's a response to it. And oftentimes, you know, it's the bad call. Like Angie said, you get the bad face, the slumped shoulders. Now that's dictating into the ultimate outcome you're shooting for. So the response is so important, how we handle different events that come up throughout the course of the game, but you have to keep it in check. I know what the long-range plan is. I know what I'm shooting for our team by the end of the season. Okay, how are we going to get there? I'm going to reverse engineer, go back to the first day of spring training. My goal, I want to be here at the end of the year, but we got to start here. And it's not a steady climb. There's some dips. That's when it gets challenging as a coach. We got this goal, and we're moving in the right direction. Holy cow, we've lost 5 or 6 in a row. I got this player hurt. What do I do now? Still got the goal. I got to figure out how to get back there. That's coaching. That's having a field. That's dealing with people. But I'll go back to it again. What you can control is your response to the negative or positive events that happen.
So that kind of wraps up sort of right time frame. We got to kind of stay with where we are.
Hold on.
No, that's fine.
Well, we can.
Andy's got
No, please go ahead. Do it.
Yeah.
We'll wrap this up with Andy.
It's such a relevant question. I mean, Scott and I think earlier in the week we talked about it for like an hour on the phone. Okay, I'll give you, I know a lot of you take your notes right now. There's a book called The Scoreboard Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh, the former 49er coach. And the more you study coaching, and it's certainly the great ones, what Nick Saban has done is amazing. And Nick Saban wasn't doing this early in his coaching career. Pete Carroll's got some of this in him, but Bill Walsh was really maybe the first prominent professional coach who talked so clearly about, we don't talk about winning. Even when they're winning the Super Bowls, it's just about getting better every day. It's about the process of getting better. And what we're talking about and what we're measuring and what we're holding people accountable to, it has to be things that you can control. Okay? Young coaches, we've all thought we can control the scoreboard. Okay? The more you coach, the more you realize, especially in this game of baseball, and then I'll give you this tip, luck is real. It is a major factor in who wins and who loses. Okay? And if you can keep your kids and yourself focused on things that you have total control over, and then not try to control things that you can't, such as your opponent, such as the scoreboard, such as the officials, such as the fans, and you just focus on executing skills that they should be able to execute, okay, your life gets a lot easier. Okay? And at the end of the day, I always ask, what's the alternative to that? Stressing about things that you can't control, is that helpful? Is that going to make anybody better? Okay? If you look in all of our internal documents in terms of our coaching, the number of times that we reference turn off the scoreboard, okay, and hold them accountable to the things that they can control. Okay? And we'll see how it works out, but I know that we're doing it based on things that that we're learning from the best coaches out there. So.
I just wanted to add one other thing, sorry. Go ahead. In regards to defining success and what that is. And one thing, especially with the group that you guys are coaching right now, strikeouts are not bad things. I know that you want them to get a hit, and you got this runner on third and things like that. Yes, there are situational hitting, but so many kids, just the strikeout is just like, oh. And it's like they have to understand some of the best players in the game have some of the highest strikeouts in the game. Whether or not they had a good at-bat should be the focus and your focus for them. There is something to be taken away from every single at-bat. Hey, don't worry about the strikeout. What did we learn from that? Probably that second pitch that we watched go by, that's the one I got to jump on. It's only a bad at-bat if you didn't take anything from it. But if the kid went up there and took 3 great hacks and missed it, like, that's okay. Do you know what I'm saying? He fouled off 6 pitches or whatever, and then he struck out. Great at bat. Like, just try to focus. If, sure, you're going to have kids that just stand up there and watch 3 go down the middle and never take the bat off the shoulder, and, you got to coach that as well. But I would just say, figure out what success is and coach that, not necessarily the outcome. Are you going to be happy with the little Texas leaguer that dropped over the infield? You got a hit, yay, but you stung one and the center fielder, caught it on a line drive. That's a good at-bat, and that's awesome, and they should literally be championed for that at-bat, even though the outcome wasn't necessarily a hit, a win. So.
Pretty fantastic stuff, huh? So anyway, want to just say thank you to these guys. Let's give them a nice hand and appreciate their time. Really, really appreciate it. All right. We're going to transition a little bit, so I'm going to present some practical things to you. I've been giving clinics for a number of years. Again, my name is Mark Zender, and I run the Mariners Grand Slam camps along with my wife. We've been running camps since 1993, and I'm a high school coach. I teach and coach at Kentwood High School. I'm the head baseball coach there, and hopefully I have some things that'll be helpful to you. I have a little handout here, and I'm just going to kind of work these around the room. This will help you in your note taking, or maybe help you follow along or keep track. When you go back and look at it, I'm just going to kind of pass a couple piles out here. This will get a little ugly, and make sure you take one. And pass them along. I'll get some to this side of the room. And this will just sort of help you follow along a little bit with what we're doing. Hopefully be of benefit to you. And a lot of the things that you heard Scott and Andy and Angie talking about, we'll address here. A lot of practical things. So anyway, we'll try to do a combo of informing and entertaining at the same time. Okay, bear with me here. I'll grab a couple things. I need to get a bat and a glove. Okay, that'll get you going. Okay. Thank you for your patience on that. Okay. All righty, so I went to college at Seattle University. I played baseball there. And then I was a head coach and taught at O'Day High School for several years. And I've had a lot of coaches influence me. A lot of what these guys are saying. I've been to a ton of coaches' clinics. And so I'm a thief too. They talked about being a thief. And how do you get good at this? And you got to take stuff from anybody you can. I think it's really important. So how many of you have never been to a coach's clinic before? Just never been to something like this. Okay, awesome. I'm glad you're here. And obviously everybody else has been, right? And it's always valuable to go. I've even found it's valuable to see the same people, because I always forget things a year later. So at any rate, I think that's always a value. Okay, so you can kind of follow along on that sheet, and then I've got a PowerPoint up here, and these are our goals for today. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what we call the baseball lens, and there are 3 sections here initially, and a lot of this is what I've learned as when I was a PE teacher and got my degree in physical education and other things. So the first 3 general sections, I think, are going to set a foundation for how you coach the game. A lot of this will apply to any sport you coach, and obviously a lot of it's specific to baseball or softball. Okay? So the first thing I want you to know is that we have what I call the baseball lens. The baseball lens. Now, I learned this from my uncle. He's long passed away. He played in the Brooklyn Dodgers organization, and it's what the Dodgers taught in the 1940s. The lens is this mindset that you need to have to perform well, okay? And it involves 3 things: confidence, relaxation, and concentration, okay? So a baseball player or softball player has to be in this mindset when they compete, all right? They have to be confident, they have to be relaxed, and they have to concentrate, all right? So confidence is really the opposite of fear, and your young kids, fear of the baseball is a very real thing. It's a very real thing, and you have to be able to deal with that, okay? So we're going to talk to you about how to deal with that. It's part of the game all the way through. Our high school kids at our school face pitchers that throw 90 miles an hour with no control. And they are scared of the ball. And, you know, they're not like little kids who are back out. And at that age, you can't do that. Socially, you can't act like you're scared when you're 17. So, but it's a real thing. So we have to do things to develop confidence for them. All right? But confidence is attained through practice and repetition. All the work that you do, your repetitions, your drills, the learning, that's where most of your confidence comes from. It's that repetition day to day, getting better day to day in any sport, any activity. All right? And it's maintained through proper communication. Right? So we'll get to that in just a second. You're going to see that communication is vital in this whole process. When we talk about relaxation, we want our athletes, particularly in baseball, to not be nervous. That means they're at the plate in any situation, for instance, and they're relaxed. That's hard to do. Most all of us that played the game at some point got up there in a game, pitcher, catchers, hitting, whatever, and we were nervous. It's a real issue in baseball because the game is so static. You know, in a basketball game or soccer game or football game, you're running, you get a run through somebody, you're just in constant motion. Nervousness isn't too much. Maybe a free throw in basketball, it all stops and you're the one. Now you're nervous. So nervousness is an issue we want to deal with. We want to learn how to make pressure situations seem normal. Okay? All right? And again, maintain through proper communication. And then concentration, the ability to concentrate, not be distracted. First of all, it's an acquired skill. So we want to do things in practice that help our kids concentrate. Force them to concentrate. They don't even have to know about it, that they're doing it, and get good at that. All right? And we need to eliminate distractions. Angie mentioned the dad saying something and coaching during the ball game. We can't have that in the culture of our teams. And we have to, and we'll talk about that here, you got to let your parents know they do need to be quiet. They have to be quiet, period. So we want to give you some tools so you can make that, communicate that out. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go into a little more detail here, all right? And if I don't work each side, I'm sorry, this room's a little tough to work, so I apologize. So we want to talk about proper coaching talk in baseball. Proper coaching talk, all right? Okay, so it's hard for me to even see here. Okay, first, the mind hears the literal. When you talk to kids in the game, you got to talk to them correctly. You have to tell them what you want them to hear, all right? Hey, see the pitch? Hit it hard. Throw a strike right here. All right? Hey, ball comes to you, field it, make a nice throw to first base. Perfect. What you can't say is, don't walk him. All right? Can't say that. All right? You can't say with a negative. The mind hears the literal. You can't say to you guys, don't think about pizza. You can't do that. Right? And I use that example all the time because it's very obvious that right now pizza's in your head. And I told you not to. But the same thing affects kids when they play ball. So I coach our parents on this. I coach the coaches on our staff this. And I talk to our kids about this. I coach them on how we talk. And it has to be positive. It has to be genuine. But it can't be against the negative. And they have to understand that part, okay? All right, now we have game cadence. This is a real part of a baseball game. A baseball game is a lot, well, it's hardly at all like a football game, but it's like a football game in that there's this cadence to it. There's a rhythm. The play stops, we all get set, and then we go again. So baseball and football, they're not a flow sport. So there's this cadence to it, all right? So the first thing we need to do, again in our talk, we're going to affirm the desired result with our player. But we can't talk too much. So if I'm coaching third base and I have a batter, I can't coach him on technique right then. The game is not the time to talk about technique. That's why the parent doing that, it's the worst thing possible. We can't think, we have to just react. Right? So I want to say things that get players to feel good about themselves, but be ready to execute. So I might just say, you know, see it and hit it, you know. But mostly, all right, we're going to talk about baseball lingo. Mbip. Hot out. We're going to say those kinds of things. Baseball figured this out a long time ago. You can be positive, affirmative, with a great attitude coming from you, this great vibe, without saying anything. The reality is your player doesn't need anything. If you think that, you're overcoaching. Just talk the baseball lingo. And that can take place as the player's getting ready mentally, as they settle in and the pitcher starts to throw, all right? Then we just want to be quiet. Just be quiet. And you have to teach your parents this. The worst thing is your player hears mom or dad, because they've got radar to mom or dad's voice. That's the one they'll hear. Even if 30 people in the stands are talking and yelling, they'll hear what mom or dad have to say. It's best for mom and dad to either say nothing, talk baseball lingo, or just clap. That's what's best. So you need to teach your parents that, okay? I will send you a parent letter after this, okay? You will get that, okay? So you'll have the letter that I give to my parents, okay? All of us high school coaches have we all have a situation where our parents are required to come in before the season. At our school, my parents get the letter, and it minces no words. It's kind, but it's very direct. You will not talk, basically, is what I'm telling them. You'll say these things. Here's what you do. And I give them this lens: confidence, relaxation, concentration. your son needs to function in this manner. Okay? All right. Okay, next thing, your players are going to fail, right? Baseball's a game of failure. So it's important that we address failure properly, and that, that when a player fails, we understand that we're going to use our lens. So think about that lens. Is what I'm saying or doing going to keep that player's confidence up, or will it destroy it, right? And it's not just what I say, it's how I say it. What's my body language like, right? I can say, way to go, and I can say, way to go. Big difference. You got to watch it, right? Okay? And what's my body language like? When I was a young coach, I was all spitfire, brimstone up there trying to win. I focused on winning. And a kid, a big situation, he might make a mistake, and I'd be, oh. I didn't say anything, but I said everything, and it was the wrong thing. So I've had to learn, just by getting older, that that's best for me in a big situation. If and when a kid fails, which they will every game, I just have to, on the outside, I'm like, hey, you're all right. You're okay. Here we go. Focus, go right on to the next thing. Okay? It's really important. All right? So I worry about teaching later. I keep notes, a little notepad in my pocket, little notepad, and I'll just, kids will see me writing something down. That's something we'll cover in practice the next day. It's just like these guys said, don't meet with your team after. We meet, but I let our kids meet. Coaches stay back. Kids go get in a circle, they talk. When they're done, they say, coaches, we're ready. We go over and we say, okay, you guys, we're good. We might mention one or two things, and we're out of here. Okay? Usually a player of the game, that kind of thing. That's all we do. Let the kids own that, right? Okay, so we teach later if they make mistakes. And then I have a little phrase that I use, and it's to help kids move along when they fail. And I want them to, we want to acknowledge their anger. We're angry when we fail. So we teach our kids to just, when they fail, swing and miss, strike out, dang it. Oh well, right, we move on. So we teach dang it, oh well, as a tool for them to manage the psychology of their temporary failure. That's what we use. University of Texas, I think they use, so what, what's next? Similar process. So whatever you want. But have a tool. Teach your kids some kind of a tool that'll work. Okay, so that's the lens. So now I want to show you some practical stuff that you need to know. I always make this joke. I spent 4 years at college to get a degree. I'm going to give you everything of value in 5 minutes. All right, so baseball has 5 tools. You as a coach have 5 tools. Very simple. Here's what they are. First, cones. Go buy some cones. I recommend colored cones. You can always buy orange ones at the store. I don't know why they settled on orange, but I find it of great value to have multiple colors. Kids are, as you know, coaching kids, it's like herding cats, but not with cones. All right, guys, line up on the green cone. They'll race to get there, right? Run to the red cone. Military precision. It's fantastic. So use cones. We use them all the time at Kentwood. We use them during our camps. You can get kids to do exactly what you want and go exactly where you want, the way you want, if you have cones. And you can be creative with them, okay? Carry a whistle. Carry a whistle. Psychologically, again, we want confidence, relaxation, and concentration. When you yell, even just bringing the kids over, which has hey guys, get over here. Little kids will wonder why you're yelling at them, even subconsciously. Carry a whistle. They are not offended by a whistle. Okay? So a whistle is really effective, and you can be really loud and get them to move quickly. Okay? All right, third, use a stopwatch. You can go buy one or use the one on your phone, but you have a stopwatch. One of the questions earlier was something like, how do you get maximum effort? Time them doing anything. Okay? Young kids love to run the bases, but they'll run them harder if you're timing them when they go around. They will. Okay? High school kids hate to run until I pull out the stopwatch. Then they love to do that. Right? So we can get maximum effort by using the right tools. Okay? All right? Counting. Simply counting. You can count everything that you do in a practice. How many times did I catch a ground ball? I threw a ball to a target 8 times out of 10, I was successful. All right? Any kind of counting does 2 things. 1, it gets them more intentful on what they're doing. And number 2, it immediately puts them into a mode of wanting to improve. It's a tremendous tool. All right? And lastly, use of lines on the ground. Okay? Sometimes you guys nowadays get to practice on turf, all sorts of lines. Perpendicular lines, parallel lines, singular lines. You can do all sorts of teaching using a line. I can tell a kid, tell them blue in the face, you need to have a fielding triangle with your toes in your glove when you field a ground ball. It's a lot easier to say, keep your toes behind the line and catch it in front of the line. They have a triangle. Lines are great. You can create lines in the dirt. If you want to go old school, again, or they're in, maybe working in a gym. There's a reason they put lines down, okay? They're really good. You guys can take any skill in any sport and look at those 5 tools and create a good drill. So really think about that. You may hear about a good drill, and that's awesome. Go online, go on YouTube. You'll see lots of drills. But you can make up your own drill using those 5 tools on any sport and any skill, okay? All right, next. How do we coach athletic skills? Okay. So how does this work? How do we actually help kids learn a skill? All right? Okay. The first thing is understanding open and closed skills. This is probably the most important practical thing that all PE teachers know. Okay. An open skill is one with many variables. Hitting a baseball, different speed, different angle, spin, drop, all sorts of things. Release point. Every pitch that's ever been thrown is different at some minute level. Shooting a basketball free throw is a closed skill. Every free throw is 10 feet high, 15 feet away in every middle school gym and every NBA arena. It is closed. It is exactly the same every time. Got the concept? We teach in closed environments. Teach in a closed environment. So when we go to hitting, we're going to close that skill down. We're not going to put Randy Johnson on the mound with our 8-year-olds. Doesn't work too well. Well, for Randy. Okay? But we're going to hit off of a tee, so the ball's not moving. You know how hard it is to hit a ball off of a tee? It's really hard to hit it well. So we want to close the skill down when we teach, and then we're going to open it up as we progress the drill to get harder and harder and harder. And if a kid fails, we can go easier, back it off, just like a brake and accelerator in driving a car. Okay? So to go to one of the questions earlier, well, how do we handle kids of different abilities? We all deal with it. Okay, if I'm hitting ground balls and I got a superstar over here and we start going simple, we do the most basic drills every day to build confidence. We call them everyday drills. Every day we're rolling and catching a ball. But as we progress, the better kids will keep hitting them harder. Now that kid who's not quite as good, I might nub it a little bounding easy candy hop to that kid. He doesn't know. But I'm making it easier. I'm pulling the throttle back and closing the skill back down for him so that he or she can be successful. Okay? So whenever a kid struggles, even if it's temporary, they're a really good player and they're in a slump, pull the skill back, close it back down, and go to work. Okay? Good players should hit off a tee every day. Edgar Martinez, I know for a fact, he used to hit off a tee here for over an hour a day, right? 90 minutes, crazy stuff. Ichiro is the same way. It's repetition, building confidence, building their skill. There's no substitute for that, okay? All right, so there's that idea. Okay, next is we want you to look for balance. You may not know a darn thing about baseball skills. You may not. You may know a lot. You may have played a lot of ball. But you all can see balance, and a lot of kids play sports off balance. So as soon as you see a kid off balance, just help them get on balance, okay? You'll see kids swing and they tip over, fall over. Okay, a couple of little quick tips. We call this a 2-second freeze. Say after they swing, have the kid freeze for 2 seconds. If they're off balance, they'll tip over. And say, okay, now, if that was a full swing, then I'll go, okay, now we're going to close the swing down. I want you to swing a little slower, and then freeze for 2 seconds, but don't tip over. So they go slow, and even if they tip over, go do it again, and they'll self-correct. Now I'll go a little faster. We'll open the skill up. I want you to swing a little harder and still try to stay frozen without tipping over. Okay? and pretty quick. Some kids will get it real fast. Others maybe a little longer. They can self-correct. Okay? You can do that, hitting especially, the 2-second freeze. Or just use lines on the field. Have them hit on a line. Throw with their feet on a line. Get a tee. Have catchers come up and rotate. See where their feet are. See if they're balanced. Pretty logical, right? Okay? So balance is a key thing in teaching. These are 3 things that you want to look for. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. So weight shift, we want our athletes to have a weight shift. The great athletes, the great hitters, they shift a lot. Albert Pujols would move his core. They did it on computer. His core would move more than 18 inches forward on his swing. You couldn't even tell. A lot of people just spin 18 inches on a big man like that. But he's so athletic, he could stay balanced and keep everything in sync with that core movement. All the great hitters have that. Okay, but you want to see a weight shift. When kids throw, they have a lot of kids struggle. They just spin, and they get nothing. You should see their body move from back to front. You should see that back foot come off the ground in a lot of things. When they hit, when they throw, the back foot should leave the ground. Okay, so look for that as you're coaching kids. Related to that is momentum. So a lot of kids, if I tell a kid, hey, throw the ball as far as you can, without any instruction, they'll do this. They'll run up and throw, because inherently the body knows what to do. So look for ways to get momentum involved in what you're doing. Kids throwing from the outfield, your infielders, your best major league infielders, if they got time, they'll shuffle 2-3 times. You know, watch Jeter, watch Crawford out here with the Mariners. They'll do that. They don't need to, but they do. It creates a more accurate throw, more velocity. There's a reason you do it. Okay? Okay. And then circles. Circles are really important. The body moves in circles. Now I really sound like a guy with a degree in physical education, okay? But we don't throw like this. We push the hand down into a circle, okay? I'll get into throwing if I got some time, but number one thing, just tell your kids to push the ball down. And that'll create a circle. We run in circles. So the fluid athlete, the really nice-looking kid that doesn't look like they're hardly doing anything, but they are. They're a lot of natural circles versus angular. Okay? And then the last one here is you got to practice perfect. Everybody hears that. Practice makes perfect? No. Perfect practice makes perfect. We've probably all heard that, right? Well, what the heck is perfect practice? There's a good question. Okay, here's the answer. Now you're excited. 1. Okay, it should be technically correct, if at all possible. Do the best you can at teaching whatever you're teaching the right way. If you're a beginner, you may not know. YouTube's great. Go to a clinic is really good. Learn something basic, but learn the technical correct way. You can get pretty good learning things the wrong way, but it's better if they're technically correct. Okay, that's the most difficult one. These other pieces you can do for sure. Okay, next, make it measurable. Can you measure it? Can you measure that it's successful? If I shoot free throws in basketball, we did this in high school. I went to high school with every practice. Shoot the ball, okay, I'd shoot 10 at a time. We're basically counting now, right? And if I made 7, I go report it to coach. Then you go, okay, go run, get tired, and then when you're done, go shoot 10 more. How am I going to make? I'm going to try for 8, coach, right? So it was measurable. That was a perfect practice situation. Along with that, last example, you should have a target, some kind of target if possible. All right. So now when I'm a pitcher throwing to a catcher, I've got a target. I can mark it. I can measure it as a ball or a strike. Okay. And if my mechanics are right, it's technically correct. That's a fairly simple example. I can do that with any skill. When I hit the ball off of a tee in a closed environment, do I just hit it or do I hit it to a target? At our sock nets at Kentwood, every one of them has a target on it. Every one of them. And our kids measure every time they go to hit off a tee, they do 5 at a time. How many times out of 5 can they hit the target? Maybe it's 5 out of 5. Sometimes we step back from the target. We're back 10, 15 feet trying to hit a dot over there. Now we've risen that skill, opened it up a little bit more. What do you think happens to their concentration level? It goes up. We're practicing our concentration. It's a little bit competitive, which we're going to talk about next. So they love that. and they get used to being competitive, which eliminates or reduces their ability to be nervous when they compete. Okay? And then the last piece is it has to be frequent. If you practice anything, frequency is vital. Okay? So there's certain drills and practices when you guys build your practices you want to do every time. We call them everyday drills. Do those basic things every day. Basic ground ball pickups, playing catch properly, right, etc. So frequency for practice. So with your own son or daughter, if they're a hitter, which I'm going to say in this room, pretty good number of them, they need to practice at home. You need a tee or something that'll allow your child to hit a lot and get a lot of volume to a target. So it's measurable with good mechanics. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Now we're going to the third part of our baseline here, competing. Okay? Scott mentioned that he has gone to a lot of coaches' clinics and learned from a lot of people, including the people across the street that play some football. Okay? I'm a big fan of Pete Carroll, and not because I'm a Seahawks fan during football season, but as a coach. He's done an awful lot to talk about competing, and I've used it in our program, and it's been a wonderful thing for our kids. Okay, these are the results. This is on your sheet, but benefits are it results in maximum effort. So we had a question earlier. How do you get maximum effort out of your kids? Compete. Compete, all right? It reduces fear. When you're competing, you forget that you're scared. You will forget that it'll go to the back of your mind. It may not entirely not be there, but when it's competitive, you're going to do that, okay? All right? It accelerates their improvement because you're getting maximum effort, okay? They will get better faster, okay? It develops poise so they can relax under pressure, okay? That big game won't feel like anything if you're competing all the time. That's how you live. Your MO is a competitive athlete. So now when you're up to bat in a game, so what? Same thing as always. I'm always competing. Now, if all you do is just take easy ground balls and just hit easy and no pressure, not counting, you're not doing anything to have target anything, all of a sudden that game's a whole new thing. Uh-oh. Now you're nervous because this is different. We don't want the game to be different. So here's your methods. Use targets for everything. I showed the example of hitting. A lot of people never think of that. Hit to a target, right? Pitching's obvious. Throw to a target, right? When you're infield, throw to, can the first baseman catch it? Is it within his or her, reach, right? Okay. Timing, using your stopwatch, huge. You can't take out your stopwatch enough in a practice, in my opinion. You can't. It's fantastic, okay? Counting. Count everything. How many out of how many, right? Run races. These were mentioned up here by these guys, okay? Keep score. How many of you, this is a rhetorical question, how many of you during practices that you have run play ball? I bet a lot of you have had practices, you didn't even play a game. You just practice skills and then you leave. That's no fun. Have some competition, all right? Okay? Compete all the time. All the time. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of games here to play that you can play at practice, all right? And man, your kid's going to love practice because they know it. They're at the end of practice. Question.
Is this appropriate for all ages?
Absolutely.
6 to 8?
Absolutely. Different games, right? We practice winning the state championship. We would practice out. A coach down at Camas High got me this. Me and being a thief, called it game winner at our level. And we'd split into 2 teams. I got enough guys on the team. We get into 2 teams. Coaches pitching. Each team gets a chance to win the state title in the bottom half of the last inning. And their job is to celebrate the way they'd celebrate. They get a pig pile. And if you lose, you got to clean up the field. Right? So we would practice that. So that when we got to something like that, it wasn't new, right? Make sense? Probably don't want to do that with 6-year-olds, but for us. And I'll give you a whole bunch of things you can do, okay? All right? So understand that competition builds a mindset that enjoys challenges. Your kids will like the challenge. Some kids are less competitive naturally than others, but all of them will make that adaptation. If they know your practice has got all these little, and a lot of these aren't over the top. They're not winning us versus them. A lot of it's like golf. I mean, if you golf, you know, you're competing usually with yourself. Am I a better scorer this time than last time? Well, my buddy's over here. Maybe he's similar, so we, you know, but it's really about you. And that can be the competitive part that we want the most, right? As well as the team environment. Okay, so, and then I use this phrasing myself, coaching a lot. If a kid's up in a big situation, you know, or big pitch, hey, enjoy the challenge, okay? I tell them that all the time. Hey, enjoy this. That's what it's all about. That's why you pray. You know, everybody dreams of being the hero at the end of the game, right? Bases loaded, you're up, there it is. Who wants to choke then or be nervous? Enjoy it, okay? All right. Are there any questions about those things? That was going through pretty fast. Question, go ahead.
We use a lot of competition in practice.
Yep.
Also stole that from Pete Carroll.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at younger age groups, I tend to have one or two players that generally win more than others. I mean, we try to develop different competitions so that can feature other players' strengths. But how do you, I mean, are there other ways that we can,
Sure.
you know, spread the
Got it. So the question was, is you, typical group of young kids, a couple of them are, you know, bigger, stronger, faster than the others, and they'd win all the time. How do you manage that amongst the team, et cetera? Well, you know, put them into teams, for instance. A relay race where you're racing. You know, like if we at our level is our conditioning, we're going to run, I'd much rather put them in a competition where they don't dread it and they have fun. And you know, the two fastest guys, I make them captains or something, or just let two kids be captains. They're going the first two picks will be the fast guys, or whatever you're doing. Split, you know, do that. And again, make a lot of your competition individual. So the, you know, the kid who's really good is just competing with themselves. If they're throwing pitches, they can, what's their ball to strike ratio or whatever it is, right? Okay? Hope that answers it. But you're going to have some of those things, okay? Okay, I'm going to take another question, then we're going to move along. Go ahead.
If you had like a 75-minute or 90-minute practice, like how many competitions would you build in a day?
Whole time. From the time we start playing catch. When we play catch, we count catch. How many times in a row can you successfully throw with your partner back and forth? That's how we do it. We start at whatever feet, but you might start at 15 feet. And if you get to 10, you got to move back 2 steps, 2 giant steps. That's important with kids. 2 giant steps. Okay? All right? And then they go to the next 10. Now at 20, they do 2 more giant steps. They just keep getting better. We're opening the skill. They're competing, they're counting, they're concentrating. It's competitive, so they're relaxed, even though it's a competitive environment. If they fail, back to 0. Make sense? So we'll do that at the start of practice, and then all sorts of things. We might take ground balls, and I just say, how many times do you catch a ground ball during the next 10 minutes? Just count your number. That's all you got to count. Just simply counting. Again, it doesn't have to be a team competition, this well-orchestrated, guys, here's the rules and ground, done all that. Just all these little things that they do, all right? You time them doing something, that's competitive. Make sense? Okay? All right, so let's talk about practice planning, and I'll keep kind of running back into some of this stuff here, okay? Make sure my time, well, we're good. Okay. All right, so practice planning. Write down your plan. Make sure you write down a plan. I've seen high school coaches that I've worked with who don't have a plan written down. Shocked the heck out of me. Good coaches who knew what they're doing. I think after we stretch, we'll go hit some ground balls to the kid. It was terrible. Okay, kids were good and they were motivated, so it worked, but you got to write it down. It really helps. I'll send you a template so you have a formula, and I'll show you the formula that I use. I think it's really effective. Okay, use groups and stations. Put your kids in most skill development into groups or stations, okay? I'll show you a couple here. But don't have one kid doing something and everybody watching, or one big long line of kids waiting for their turn to get a ground ball, right? You need to get your parents to help you, be a part of it, get somebody, you know, better to have, if you have 3 people coaching, better to have, if you have 12 on your team, 3 groups of 4, right? And they're each getting ground balls. Keep them moving, okay? So that's important, all right? And then place competitive elements throughout your practice, which was your question you just asked. So little things that keep practice fun and engaging. and helpful for you, okay? And they'll really enjoy this. Okay, this is the basic practice structure. I use this every day. I can change it up all over the place, but this is how we do. And we work it basically from the most basic to the most fun, right? So we're going to warm up and stretch. Make the first 10 minutes the same in your practices. Don't change them. So you guys are in a situation, you're not like me where the kids come out of the school, get changed, and come out to the field. You got parents coming from all over, and somebody's got to stop at Starbucks and get a coffee on the way. And your kids don't always show up on, yeah, I know. And then they don't show up on time, and you're ruining my practice. First 10 minutes, make it exactly the same every time. We jog to the fence, we come back, we're going to do a little dynamic, you know, all that stuff like Frankensteins and butt kickers and all those different things that we do now. They don't need it. Kids are like Gumby, right? They're all flexible. They don't need it, but it's good for them to do it. And if they go, why are we doing this? You go, because the Mariners do it. Oh, okay. That's what you do. All right? And then you're going to throw, play catch, okay? And then after they play catch, you're going to run again, a little jog. Get their bodies moving. And little kids love to run. My guys hate it. Your kids will love it. That's a good bonus for you. Okay? When you play catch, again, compete. Play proper catch. How many in a row? You can play 21 if you got older kids. You got all-star kids. 21. Ball hits them in the chest. Hits their partner in the chest, 2 points. If you can hit the guy right in the face, 1 point. Off the body cavity, no points. Play to 21. Or play to 15 or play to 9. See who wins. You think their concentration isn't very good? Pretty darn good. They love it, right? All sorts of things you can do that way. Little guys struggle playing catch. How many out of every 6 or 5 can you 2 throw and catch successfully? Make it simple for them. You got 2, that's awesome. Let's try for 3. Okay. That's what they'll do, okay? Or the count catch. We do count catch. It's intense in high school. We're at 92. Yeah, we're at 95. Screw you. You know, right? And they're back there, long toss, and then somebody makes a bad throw, and then, you know, they're having fun with each other, but, you know, it's really a great thing. Okay? All right. I'm going to just jump from this because it goes right in the same thing. So over here, and I'll fill in a little bit for you guys. Okay, again, the first 10 minutes the same. I talked about that. Okay, so when somebody comes at minute 7, it's okay. They know what to do, and you're not interrupted. You'll probably be okay. Okay? All right. Then we do our defense, what I call our everyday drills. So now you're different than I am. We have specialized positions in high school. So I have outfielders, infielders, catchers, and I've even got some pitcher-only kids. Okay? Now, when I coach middle school and I coached Little League, which I did, we would have to do, I had everybody do everything. Okay? So everybody's an infielder for the for say 7 or 8 minutes. And I would recommend that any drill you do only limit it to 8 minutes. I learned this at a clinic in Portland a few years ago. That's what Oregon State baseball does. They did some study. The colleges are great for this. They study stuff, and then they find it, right? That's what they do. They're academic about everything. But they did a study, and it found that if you go more than 8 minutes for any drill, your kids will lose their concentration level and attention. So move them quick. That's okay. You're going to be frequent in what you do anyway. Okay, we usually don't go 8 minutes. Sometimes in a team thing we will, but individual things we try to move on sometimes just 30 seconds to a different version of what we're doing, and maybe a minute. Okay, so have all your infielders working together, and then when you're done with infield, go to outfield drills. Okay, and when you're done with outfield, I would have, in your catchers, this is the one tricky one. Pitchers and catchers are a little different. So the way you do that is you have all your kids pitch and catch. Right, half of your team's not a pitcher or a catcher. But have them do it if you have a young team. And then you can focus most of your coaching on the kids who are pitchers and catchers. And then they also, to that end, you may need your pitchers and catchers to stay after practice and throw a bullpen or do something when everybody's done. That's a reality, right? And you certainly may want to do that. But as an everyday piece, I would do that. I did that at the middle school when I did that, okay? And we'd be done in about 15, 20 minutes with all of this stuff, okay? And I only had, I think in the middle school, the bus came and got the kids after like an hour and 20, which was great, but it meant you really had to time what you were doing to make sure you got everything in, okay? All right? And then For team defense, things like cutoffs and relays. If you have older kids, if you got majors, little league majors, or your Bronco, if you're a pony, you're probably getting into cutoffs and relays. If you're have younger teams, just have them throw the ball to second base. Don't worry about what base and counting 2 runners ahead of the lead runner, all that stuff. It's too hard for them. Just get the ball to second base. Have a drill where you put the ball in the outfield fence, put a cone for where they start, have them run to the fence and pick up the ball and throw it to second base and get it within a circle. Okay, create this drill. Time them. From the time you blow a whistle, which you're going to bring now, okay, and they run to the ball, okay, start the stopwatch when they take off. They go get the ball, they throw it, and if they get into the target, stop the stopwatch. Because the big problem with little leaguers in the outfield is they get the ball and everybody's yelling at them and they hold the ball. And you need to teach them to get rid of the ball quick and accurate. So create that drill with cones, stopwatch, and a whistle, and it's fantastic. We did a little clinic yesterday at Kentwood. We didn't have school to correct papers, but I did a baseball clinic. Anyway, and so we had 30-some kids there, and we did this drill in the gym, and I actually forgot a piece of equipment I was going to use. I had to kill time. So we did that drill I just told you. Did it for 20 minutes. And I was thinking, man, this is going long. And as soon as we said, well, that's it, they all went, ah. These kids are all upset because they were having so much fun doing a simple drill like that, okay? All right, so there's that. Bunt defense, you can do that. Sitch is short for situations. Just put kids out there. Hey, man, runner on first, here we go. Hit the ball to the outfield, see how they do. Just run situations, okay? It's a really good drill. All of us do it. At the higher level, you can do it at the lower level and teach, okay? All right, individual offensive skill work. I'm a big fan of bunting. I think it's important because you kind of close down the hitting skill. You're tracking the ball. So just learning to bunt is good. And I put them into groups of 4. We did this when I played at Seattle U. I played for Frank Papsadero. He liked us to bunt 99% of the time. It wasn't very fun, but we'd win 1-run ball games. That was great. Okay. All right. But that works. Put kids in 3 or 4 groups bunting, and they track the ball, and they can learn that skill. Okay? That's a good one. Base running. All the kids love to base run. Again, time them. Home to first properly. Run from first to third properly. Get the right banana-shaped route. Run a home run. All those kind of things. Team offense, right? And then just regular batting practice type things. If you have batting cages at some facility you're at, you can run kids through there while hitting off of tees. That's probably not available to most of you, but you might do some instruction there. And then we're going to go to batting practice. So I put this out. This is really important. So batting practice is toward the end of practice because this is what kids love. When do we hit? I think we hear that. I hear that every practice for 30-some years. When do we hit? All right. So here's how you run a batting practice, okay? Okay, first let me start with how do you pitch the batting practice? This is the biggest mistake that I see in the little league type level, youth ball. Is there some guy, he really knows, he almost made the majors, but he didn't. And he's out there pitching from 46 feet, and the ball's going like this, and it's a strike about 5% of the time. And some poor kid is trying to hit it. Now, you need to understand in the physical development of kids that the ability to catch a ball coming down is very low until you're about 9 years old. Some kids can catch fly balls when they're 8. And people struggle with it their whole life. Our high school kids struggle with high pop-ups to the that are foul in the infield. High school kids, as good as some of them are. We've got 3 guys on the 40-man major league roster right now. That's how good of kids I've been able to coach. They still struggled in high school on high foul balls. So understand this guy's pitching, and he's arcing the ball, and the kids are trying to hit it with the ball coming down. They can have no success. You need to close down your skill as a coach who pitches batting practice. So I recommend you either sit on a bucket or get on a knee, close it down, get it shorter. You need an L screen or something, a garbage can, something so you don't die. All right? And it's important. All right? And just shorten your throw, not a full arm, just a dart, right here. The time from release to the time that they have the ball in the hitting zone can mimic a pretty darn fast pitch. Where's their fear when you do this? Way down. You're back here at 46 and you're wild? Fear's up, confidence down. Can't relax. Through our lens, doesn't work. Here, short, if I'm throwing just to this on-base banner in front of me that far away, I can throw little darts, and I can be really accurate. Hey, let's work on all outside pitches. Let's work on the inside pitches. Pretty darn good, right? So we do a lot of that. So that's how you throw it. And also when the kids have their turn at bat, time them. Don't say 9 swings each kid, or 6 swings a kid, or 6 hits. One kid will be done in 30 seconds, the other one will take 30 minutes. Just time it. That's fair. Everybody, and I go about 45 seconds. You think minutes fair, just go 30 seconds, 45. That's a lot if you got a full bucket of balls, okay? So I think that's really important. We time every hitter going through batting practice. I'd rather go 2 quick rounds and have frequency in our practice than just 1 round per hitter. Does that make sense? We want that frequency. Okay. Now, let's see here. So I can only be in one place at a time, so you guys, okay. You'll notice these are buckets. Really nice looking bucket. Get 2 buckets for the balls. Go buy a bucket if you have to. They're not very expensive. Have 2 buckets, okay? A bucket of balls by the coach who's throwing behind an L screen, okay? And we split the kids into 3 groups on this diagram. I put them by color. So the batters are in red. Batter number 1 is hitting. Maybe he's going for 35 seconds or whatever it is. And the other 3 are waiting, okay? The second group is actually live running. A lot of people have baseball practices and don't practice their base running, not live. So now they can react to the baseball. And I would say about every 3rd pitch, guys. Don't do it every pitch. They just can't do it. It's too quick. Because if they take off, they can't get back. So about every 3rd pitch, all right, they're going to react to the ball. And if they're at first and it's a ground ball, they're going to run to second. Then they go to second. Then they're going to react. Is the ball behind them? They'll go to third. If it's in front of them or at them, they'll go back. Then move over to third. Third base, they're going to tag up or go score. Then loop around and go around to first. Really good. We do this every single day. Okay? And then we only have 4 kids shagging, assuming a team of 12. Now they're, you know what's really bad? 11 kids shagging. Because some kid will want all the balls, and a bunch of them don't want any of them, and it's just nothing. They end up picking daisies and plucking grass and all that stuff. So 4 kids, I put cones out. I put cones there. Have them stand by a cone. Because if you don't give them cones, what are you going to do? Stand next to each other. You got that cone, you got that cone, there, and then they bring the balls to as fast as they can, because they got to cover their cone. They got to run the ball back over to the bucket. You better hurry, because your cone's empty, and they need you over there. Oh, all right? And that works really good. So they're all active, and you can get a whole round in about 12 minutes. Go twice. They'll like it. Okay? All right, so we do batting practice. Now they're all happy. All right? And then we have competitive games. So I'll walk you through what each of these are. Okay? And there are more than this, but this is what I gave you for today. So 2-ball is playing baseball with only 2 pitches per batter. We're not giving 3 strikes and 4 balls. We're just cutting down the length of the at-bat. Okay? So the first pitch, if they don't like it, they can let it go by. Not the second pitch. That's their last pitch. So we just want the game played. All right? And I like to play if I have a little league team. Now high school I don't have to because I've got 16 on the team or something. We can split it into 2 teams and make it work with coaches. But for you at 12, play 4 on 4 and 4. So a lot like the batting practice, have a team that's batting, a team playing infield, and a team playing outfield. Okay? You might say, well, each inning is just everybody batting once, or batting twice, or we'll do 3 outs. You can do whatever you want. All right? After you're done batting, you go to the outfield. Outfielders infield, infielders go hit. And just play 2-ball. You'll play so much baseball or softball, it's awesome. Kids will love it, and they'll love you. 2-ball is fantastic, and so is 4 on 4 and 4. So combine those 2. Live tee infield, put a tee at home plate. Have the kids get infielders at each position. Let them all rotate in now. Okay, the batters come up at the tee, swing, run to first. Live. It's a live ground ball. Now we've got a race going on. It's competitive. Can I win that race and beat out the throw? The infielders try to catch it, throw to first. All right? If the batter hits the ball to the outfield on the fly, they have to go get it. Makes them concentrate on hitting the ball on the ground to the infielder. Okay? Now, with older kids like ours, we can play live tee outfield as well. Okay? But we don't do that too often. Mostly live tee infield. It's a really good drill. Okay? Game winner, that's the one I told you about. You can do that. If I had Little League All-Stars, I would do game winner. I would play game winner. Replicate the final inning of the game. And you can create any situation you want. Put a runner in second. Put a runner in first, no outs. Whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Okay? All right? Pop-to-pop times. That just means you're using a stopwatch and pop-to-pop, so a ball to somebody, throwing it, and then back to the other person, the double pop. Hitting the glove and then hitting the other glove. So catcher pop-to-pop times are real big, right? Throw to a catcher, how quickly can they get the ball accurately to second base? And in fact, I'll take you through that progression here real quick on how that would work to use all the elements. Okay, you can have your infielders catch ground balls with somebody with a stopwatch. Good job for a parent, right? Once the ball hits the infielder's glove, from the bat to the infielder to first, how long does that take? Typically, it's about a 4-second run. At our level, it's about a little more. It's high fours, and at your level, I'm not really sure what it is. But then they can kind of work on how quick do I need to get the ball over there. Time a few kids, come up with what it is. Now make it competitive. Can you field a ground ball and get it to first in the time that you need without having somebody run all the time? Okay? All right? Coaching on the run is just adding to 2-ball and 4-on-4. While the kids are playing ball, just coach them. We do this a ton at camp. We stop the game and, all right, guys, here's what happened here. Let's tell you about, kids need to learn situations. They play far too much formal baseball and softball, in my opinion. Too many, that's the only time they play, practice or games. Go play, I love wiffle ball in the yard. I love pepper, all that stuff. The more they can play, the better. So in practice, just play and coach them up, right? All right, guys, that was great, but that relay went to first. We really should have thrown it to second. You guys all got it? Yep, great. Okay, here we go. Boom, go on. Keep going. Coaching on the run, okay? All right, play kickball. You know how much fun kids will, how much they'll love you at some practice. You bring out a playground ball and play kickball, they'll be shocked, and they'll love you because they know the rules. It's basically baseball. It's super fun, and you get maximum effort, and it's competitive, okay? And if you have the little kids, the little guys just learning, play tag. Play tag. Baseball's really tag, right? It's a simple game. You're either in or you're out. That's why we play innings. You're in. I don't want to be out. You're right. So that's how you're playing. You're playing tag. So have them play tag, then add the ball. Then play tag, but use the bases, right? It's all simple stuff, okay? All right, so those are some games you can use and competitive stuff. All right, skills and drills I'm not going to really talk about. When I do a full clinic, that's what I do. I go through things. Let me see where I'm at for time here. Ooh, 7 minutes. Okay, I got time. So I'm going to do one drill. Okay, hope everybody can see me. I'm going to go without the mic so we can do this right. Well, no, I'm loud. All right, so let's take catcher drill, okay? Using everything that I've showed you. Open to close skill, competition, different things. Let's see what we can do. So catchers, if you have catchers, the one thing they love is throwing runners out at second base. Man, do they love that. That's the number one thing every catcher that I've ever known wants to do. That's their source of pride and what they have the most fun at. So how do we practice that? We want an accurate throw, and we want it to be quick, at the quickest possible. So we're going to build a drill progression from closed to open in a competitive environment, right? Using targets, all this stuff. So the catcher, we're going to start, you teach them the right stance, down the stance. Here they are, hold the ball, and we're just going to have them start with no throw. Put the ball in their glove, and we're going to put a tee on the ground, right? Using lines. Their feet are on the tee, on the top of the tee. The tee comes out, and we're going to teach them. Got to do it right here, okay? But we want to teach them to come up here and make sure that they're now square towards their target, and they can check themselves on the line. Make sense? Using lines, they're balanced, they're where they need to be. If they're off, they can practice that and get repetitions till they get it down, okay? The next progression is we're going to take and throw the ball to the kid. Now he or she's going to catch it and come up, do the same thing. We've opened the skill a little bit. Now we're going to go back, throw the ball to them, same thing, but now they're going to catch it and throw it back just to us, right to a target. We'll put a target right on top of our catching side shoulder. Where are they at? How many of those, do 5 of those. How many do you hit the target? Now we're going to throw all the way to second base. Open it up some more. Okay? Throw 5. How many are on target? Count it. Competition. Fun. Right? Increase the skill level. Down you go. And we're going to finalize it with a stopwatch. Now we're going to time it. Right? You get 5 we're going to time. Okay? We'll give you the time unless it's a bad throw. You do not get the time if it's a poor throw. It must be an accurate throw because you don't want them to get their technique incorrect in the name of trying to be fast. Okay, you see how we built that drill all the way from closed to open using all these different tools. Okay? So you can do that with anything. Okay? All right? All right. Let's see here. Last slide, and then I'll take questions, and then we're really about out of time. Okay. All right. Working with parents. Okay. The preseason letter you'll get. Okay? The preseason letter you'll get. Okay? And again, it's what I hand my kids. You can take that and retype it your own form. That's up to you. You can use the one that and you can just go, this coach says that. Okay? Bruce Brown is a former athletic director here in the state of Washington who developed the concept of the 4 roles. A lot of you, I'm sure, have heard this. Okay, players play, coaches coach, umpires or referees officiate, and parents support. That's the role, and you get to pick one. Parents do not get to be the coach. They don't get to be the umpire, and they certainly don't get to play. Kids don't get to umpire or comment to umpires. Coaches don't get to do that, though we get to finagle them. But I honestly have learned just, if I go up to, I've literally got, I'll put my arm around an umpire if I disagree, and I'll just go, you know I don't agree with that call. I go, yeah, I know. And I'll say, okay, so just so you know, I'm going to pretend I'm kind of mad at you, so my kids think I'm right on their side. I go, okay, we're good. Then I'll kind of walk away. But umpires do a lot better job if you work with them, okay? And then I think it was Andy or Scott mentioned, where am I at here? Oh, I'm gonna sneak back up to my little sub-bullet point. Get your parents involved. Have them, give them a role on the team. Get them out there to coach. You know, scorekeeper, photographer. You know, somebody's in charge of your social media. For goodness sakes, you probably whatever. Have your parents have a role on the team. That's really important. Have them be a statistician or do anything, right? That's helpful. The ride home, again, a lot of people have heard this now, but as parents, our job is not to coach our kids on the ride home. It's the one thing they surveyed all the college athletes, and they said, what did you hate most about being a kid, playing sports? And they said the ride home. It's a huge mistake and a huge problem. So you really do have to coach your parents. I think it's vital. I tell them, you know, I haven't had to do it. My parents are awesome. They've learned they've got to be quiet during the game. We just hum babe and ha now, and we talk baseball lingo, and we understand the cadence of the game, and they're really good. So because they want the best for their kids. But you have to talk to them and coach them through it, all right? But it does work. So there's that. You know, teach your parents the baseball lens. Teach them that. Confidence, relaxation, concentration, and help their kid achieve that mindset when they play. And then the last thing I tell my parents, and it's in the parent letter, is that the sunrise provides clarity. There's a if you've been a parent, it's really hard. And when I mean an athletic parent. If your child is an athlete, you are convinced that everybody's out to favor somebody else and all this stuff, and that the coach took him out of the game because he doesn't like her or whatever it is. And you get angry. And so I tell my parents, you go home and you write me the nastiest email. Then you get up in the morning and make sure you want to send it. Get it out of your system. I don't care. And if you want to just, and then if you really think it's a problem, email me and just say, hey, I'd like to meet and talk, right? So the sunrise provides clarity. So I do tell my parents that. You may not run into that too much, but that's that, okay? All right, and I think that's the last thing. Oh, what else I got here? I forget. Oh, there it is. This is the most important thing, okay? Make your season a fun experience. Teach the baseball culture. How do you make your season fun with a kid who doesn't like baseball? Teach them the culture. Baseball cards, trivia, learn the major league teams. Who's your favorite player? What uniforms do you like? Why? I think that stuff's awesome. And kids today are losing that. We have a lot of high school kids. They've been pushed so much into select ball, and they think they're all going to be D1 baseball players. I got a team of them all think they're going to be. Not one of them is good enough to do that. I got 2 that are juniors that are, but my seniors, not one of them is a D1 player. They're good players. They'll play CC ball, be really good players, but they're not D1. But they've been told they are going to be. But a lot of those kids don't have a love of the game the way I like to see it, and I just want kids that passionately want to be a part of the game. So use the culture of baseball. Go see a game, right? Go see a game. Go to a Mariners game together. Go to a local high school game. They're free, you know. It's a great price, and you get a great seat, okay? But go to game, okay? Develop your players. Try to win, but that doesn't matter. It's like these guys were saying up here. Learn. That's when you hear, you know, focus on the process. Don't worry about winning. It'll take care of itself. That's a byproduct, right? Okay? And then this last piece is what we're really about here. So teaching and reinforcing the love of the game is the single most important thing you can do to ensure a player reaches their playing potential. If you want to make sure that the kids you have become as good a baseball or softball player as possible, all right, help them love the game. Because the kids that love it will spend time on their own, by themselves, practicing. If they don't love it, then they'll only go when begrudgingly it's practice or a game. And there's no substitute for the frequency and the accumulation of proper repetition. Just the way it is. So if you get kids to love it, awesome. And just like these guys said, get your kids to play again next year. That's it. Okay? All right. That wraps up what I'm doing today. In fact, instead of just, let me make sure we're on time here. I think we're good. Oh, 12:02. I'm over. Okay. If you have questions, I'll stay and talk afterwards, but that's all I got. All right. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Have a great season. Thank you.